So I got a Corvette, you're looking at it, and yep, this month's update is going to be a very fantastic one. So, my ownership experience of this car has been fantastic this entire time. Now, what has happened has not deterred my ownership experience or my, my opinion of the car. Honestly, this is something that was gonna happen anyway. Just happened sooner than I wanted it to. So, what is going on here? I had a head gasket leak. I did go to Carlisle. Carlisle was pretty fun. I'm gonna do a little bit of a review on that. Met Lyle from Sarasota Corvettes. Or from CNS Corvettes and from Sarasota, Florida. Dude is literally larger than life. I really enjoyed talking with him. If ever I'm in Florida, I'm going to buy the man a beer. Don't know if he drinks or not, but you know what? I'll at least buy him a coffee. But anyway, I bought a bunch of his shirts and stickers and everything. So, anyway, getting back to the brass tacks of the situation here. So, I went to Carlisle. My hope was to go to Atlantic City and spend a little bit of time there and be able to say that I've taken the car officially from coast to coast, right? That did not end up happening because I had a little situation where I've had head gaskets go out on me in the past, and I can firmly say now that this is the newest iteration of a head gasket problem that I've ever had. What ended up happening was I had a little bit of a blowout here, and it basically what ended up happening was it was such a small head gasket leak that when the car warmed up, it would start bubbling in. What ended up happening was what told me for sure it was a head gasket was it eventually filled up the recovery tank, and when I saw that it did that, it was bubbling at a consistent rate. Initially, when it was starting, I had just gotten out to Carlisle, and I had an issue before I got to Harrisburg. The car wasn't quite. It wasn't running wrong. It wasn't running inconsistently. I mean, every now and again, I'd have like a hit of a miss, just a bit, just a little bitty miss, right? And so anyway, I'd have a little bit of a miss, and I was kind of thinking, oh, okay, maybe I got picked up some bad gas, because that's not unlikely. And I had some other issues, where I was like, okay, trying to sort things out. So anyway, I was checking coolant in the morning one day. I noticed that the recovery tank did not pull back in, or the surge tank didn't pull back, or the recovery tank didn't pull back. Anyway, when the car cooled off, it did not pull from the tank. So I was like, that's a little weird, right? So up until that point, it didn't give me any indication that anything was really wrong. But I had, if you guys remember, I just had the catalytic converter plug up on me. So I think I know where the problem started. But that right there was my first indication that something may be a little bit wrong. So I pulled the radiator cap off, and it was low. And I was like, this is interesting, because it's not supposed to be low. Why did it not pull back from there? Well, by the time I got back to, we got stopped, after I got some coolant, filled it up. And I went and I took basically, what ended up happening was I filled up the reservoir, and then it just kept burping it out of here. And I was just like, okay, well, maybe what had happened was when I did the radiator, I forgot to bleed the heater core. And it was cool enough to where in auto, for the AC system, in auto, it in the morning kicked the heat on. So I'm thinking, oh, maybe I got an air bubble and it's trying to push this air bubble out. So maybe that's what's going on, right? Well, I bled the system. The car ran great for a whole day. And then all of a sudden it started the puking system again, or, puking itself to death again. Now, keep in mind, my oil temperature was around 215, and my temperature never crept above, 223 was my highest temperature. And that was me in town driving around. Nothing was going on that was giving me the indication this is a head gasket. And then later on, when I was, at Carlisle, it behaved fine. I bled the system, and then it was fine. But on my way home, because I was like, you know what? Things aren't adding up here. Things are just a little too goofy, and I doubted the car. So I was like, you know what? I'm safer heading back home in case this does turn into something than I am heading to Atlantic City, putting another 6 hours drive time on the car, the opposite direction. And I'm like, I wasn't untrusting of the car to the point where I felt like it was unsafe to drive it. Does that make sense? Right? So the coolant in there is not from the radiator. It's from when I drained the radiator. So anyway, basically what ended up happening was the day I was leaving Carlisle, the morning I was leaving Carlisle, I had a miss. And I'm like, that's weird. I had a miss. And I was thinking, maybe I messed up the OptiSpark because of bleeding the system and it draining onto the OptiSpark. Maybe I got a little too greedy with that, and I might have shorted out the OptiSpark a little bit. That can happen, right? But, I was like, okay, trying to rationalize in my head why the car isn't overheating if it does have a bad head gasket. Or maybe I've got a pinhole leak somewhere and I'm just not finding it yet. Anyway, regardless, I get in the car, start driving. I went to, I initially was going to go to I was going to go to Huron, Ohio. But I ended up in Port Clinton. And car drove fine. Car drove fine, but I did lose a half a gallon of coolant. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's a pinhole leak. Trying to figure it out. I let the car sit there and let it idle. I'm like, okay, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm watching in the tank over here, and it's a steady bubbling. And I'm like, oh boy, that might be something of an issue. So I'd rub the engine and it would bubble again. But at this time, it was starting to pull back in. It's starting to pull from the, the heat of the day. It would pull back in and do what it was supposed to do. So I'm like, well, maybe I'm chasing an air bubble, maybe, whatever. So anyway, I start my way home, and I ended up stopping at an AutoZone to see, because I had a misfire code, and I was just like, okay, what is misfiring, and what's going on here, right? Now, keep in mind, I just changed the spark plugs, just changed the coil. I did coil, spark plugs, and spark plug wires before the season, right? So I get on my way, and I'm about 3 hours from home, and I start getting low on power. Well, I pull over, I pull the dipstick, and up to this point, I did not have any sort of fluid on the dipstick or vapor or anything on the dipstick. It didn't smell gassy. But what I ended up having was, at that situation, I'm about 3 hours away from home. Well, a little more than 3 hours. About 4 or 5 hours away from home. I pull the dipstick, and I notice that there's some vapor on it. I'm like, it could be condensation. Didn't really smell like coolant. So I was like, okay, well, I'll stop and I'll check it in 2 hours. So I get about 2.5, 3 hours from home. Stopped again, let the car cool off. It is pulling from the surge tank, or the recovery tank. It's pulling from the recovery tank, and I'm really happy that it's working. But at this time, I'm also experiencing a major miss. I'm down on power, and I pull the dipstick out, and there is I pull the valve cover cap off, and there's lung butter, and I'm like, crap. So up until this point, that had not happened. So I pulled the dipstick, smelled it, smelled kind of gassy. So clearly I have either lost a cylinder or I've washed a cylinder. And I'm suspecting that the miss is causing my cylinder wash. Well, I get home and I pull the thing apart. And it was cylinder number one. I pulled the spark plug out of cylinder number one. Now, the crazy thing is, by the time I was able to get around the block on compression test, I was testing on a cold cylinder on cylinder one, but it still held pretty good pressure, but I couldn't do a leak down test because I didn't have a leak down tester. But anyway, at the end of the day, cylinder one is my culprit, right? And I pull the valve covers off. They've got, let's go in here and look. They've got the trademark of we had coolant in us. The water pump actually I changed this 30,000 miles ago. And it actually had been weeping for a little while. So, unfortunately, it was a Chinesium part when I got it. It was the only thing I could get at the time because, budget was kind of tight. Anyway, that being said, injectors worked flawlessly. Everything was fantastic. Anyway, so I've got a mix of fuel, some coolant, and oil in here. So, anyway, so I got all that going on. I pull the motor apart. I pull the valve covers off. The only part of the engine that had that lung butter in it was the valve covers, the top of the valve covers. The lifters did not have anything. The lifter valley still pretty clean. I dropped the drain pan or the oil plug and drained the oil. Perfect, smelled great. Was everything you needed it to be in oil. Obviously needed to be changed because I'm 3,500 miles in on a fresh oil change at this point. So I changed the oil a little bit before I left, and then I come back home. I was going to change the oil anyway, so no big deal. So I pull the heads off, right? I pull the heads off, and I'm looking at it, and it's not the end of the world, but let's see here. It's not the end of the world, but I pull the heads off. I did check the numbers. It is the original motor. I don't think the motor's ever been worked on. But anyway, I've got some scoring, actual real nice gouges there. Not real bad or nothing, but it's worth a touch up. And then on this cylinder here, you've got, they're not bad. I could probably run it, but honestly, I've got everything apart. I may as well just rebuild the dang thing. So my big concern was when I got the thing apart, whether I would have to, whether my bearings would be bad. At this point, I'm not really thinking my bearings are bad. Anyway, this cylinder here did try to wash out. It still had an oil film on it, but you could tell it had some blow by. But the way the head gasket looked, it looked like it blew on the top side. It came through here, and the cylinder head just kind of washed out on this side here, and it looked like it kind of crept up in there, or was trying to. But what ended up happening was enough coolant at some point got in here that it washed the cylinder for enough time where the where gas was able to get past the rings. So Regardless, I got to pull the motor so I can fix that situation, because anytime you have gas going by your rings, you need to, at the very least, pull everything apart and check everything. Make sure you don't have a nice little hole in the bottom of the cylinder there. I mean, it's a situation where, frankly, you could either be rehoning the cylinder, or you could get lucky and it's just fine. And the really bad thing is about this is that's not even the worst of the engine. The worst of the engine's on the driver's side, where there's the scraping on the sidewall, which isn't bad. It's a common thing, but clearly somebody in the past somebody before me had the valve cover, or the intake manifold off of the car. They didn't torque it to spec, but one thing I like is when I pulled this off, when I undid all the bolts, all of my bolts were still tight, which was fantastic. See, that's what happens when you torque things down properly, kids. You don't have things coming loose. One thing I will knock myself on that repair is that the LT4 gaskets, I should have checked them a little bit better. They could have been better condition when I put them on. I could have done a better job putting them on, basically. So at this point, what I'm looking at is I'm going to bore the cylinders over. So unfortunately, I'm not going to get my dyno test that I wanted to do before I tore the car down. I wanted to see what the car was actually doing on power. It felt pretty strong, so I was thinking, around the 345 mark. Definitely not like 375 or something like some people say. But it was feeling a little bit better than 330 horsepower. But anyway, I'm going to be doing long tube headers. I'm not entirely positive what I want to do for pistons. Rods, I'm still looking into them, I'm going to see how they look once I get the engine out, and once I get the rods out. I'm going to check them out, make sure that they're doing pretty good. But OptiSpark, I'm going to pull that. I'm going to change that. I'm going to keep it. Evidently, there's a guy that will rebuild them with your old hardware. So I think I might go that route. But I'm going to just keep it, put it to the side. That way I got it for a spare in the future. But anyway, new OptiSpark. I'm going to freshen everything up. I may paint the engine block. I don't know. Something that I know is going to irritate some Corvette guys. I'm probably going to peel everything out of here and spray trunk liner on everything. That like the old Chrysler splatter paint. I might do that to the engine bay just to irritate people. And to let everybody, anybody that would, that would get the car after me, which is unlikely because I'm getting buried in the car. I'm not getting buried in the car, but you get. But anyway, in the unlikely event that somebody else does get the car beyond me, it will end up, unless it's inherited to like a child of mine. You'll know that I've been there and touched it, So at this point, the only things that I had not taken out of this car are the engine and transmission. So we're going to fix that problem. So enough yapping about the car. Even with this, I was still right around 25 to 28 miles a gallon, depending on the trip out or back. Out there, I did better on gas mileage than I did on the way back. Just simply because I'm going downhill for most of the way. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for that. So Carlisle, I did take some video and a bunch of pictures of Carlisle. Now, here's the deal. I have something taking up a bunch of my time. I'm not able to get to the Carlisle videos just yet, but I'll eventually post them. There's a bunch of other people that have posted Carlisle things. One thing that I think is rather interesting, I'm going to kind of touch on this, when I do get into my Carlisle videos. Not everybody in the C4 world is as wholesome as they purport to be. I did meet Lyle from Sarasota, Florida, the CNS Corvettes guy. That dude is a very stand-up individual. But I did meet other people there that were in the C4 world and just Corvette world in particular, and just in general. And let's say I was not impressed with how they present themselves on camera versus in person. You know, it's like, hey, if I'm coming to buy something from you, don't be a dick to me. One, don't be a dick to me. Two, if you tell me that you sell things, well, I'll just give you a brief hint. I was looking for extra heads, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, I would like an extra set of heads and an extra crank. Why? Because everything you're looking at minus the crank is not special to the LT4. Big shocker, guys. The LT4, the crank and the heads pretty much are the only unique parts. Well, the intake manifold too, but I mean, as far as the short block, I mean, if you had to put an LT1 in there, the car really wouldn't notice a difference. It would, but it really wouldn't notice a difference until you had to mash on the gas and you exceeded the rev limit of the LT1 crank. The LT1 crank isn't going to explode, but it has more weight. It won't perform as well as the LT4. So anyway, that being said, there's more mass being spun around, so you'll notice a difference. Anyway, so I'll just kind of give a brief of what happened. So basically, I go up to a guy. I'm like, hey, I know you're big in the C4 game. I know you part out a bunch of C4s. How often do you come across LT4 parts? I'm interested in a set of heads. And he says to me, oh, I don't do just heads. If I do get a motor, I sell it whole. And then I'm like, okay, right? Well, right there, the dude's got me from a set of heads to now a whole motor, okay? All right, so him hauls around. I'm like, okay, how much do you want for that? And then he gives me an exposition dump that, I don't just sell just that. I sell the harness and the computer too. And I'm like, okay, all right. Well, now the guy's got me in a motor, a wiring harness, and a computer. Okay, end of the day, right? What do we want? How much do you want out the door, right? Well, the dude just proceeds to be a complete douchebag to me. And doesn't ever give me a price, by the way. Does not ever give me a price. And clearly, I'm in the business to be spending money here. Anyway, that being said, I'm trying to buy these parts off of this guy, and the guy don't even want to give me a price. And the reason why is because he says, and I quote, the parts or these parts that I sell don't ever go in Corvettes. I'm like, okay, whatever. I have a first generation RX-7 I can put them in. No big deal, right? I mean, don't worry, bud. Your conscience is clear. I didn't say that to him, but at this point I could tell he was not interested in giving me a price. So I don't know. I know what the going rate for LT4 motors is. It's between $3,000 and $5,000, just depending on the condition. I'm sure you could get some wackadoodle fucking dude up there saying, oh, give me $6,500 for that motor. Well, that's half the value of realistically one of these cars. And let's face it, if you're putting a non-numbers matching number motor in your car, at that point, you're basically taking your values to anybody who actually gives a crap about that and kneecapping them, right? But anyway, that being said, because now it's not a numbers matching car. Do you think I care about that? But I digress. Anyway, that being said, I know what the motors go for on the black market, if you will. But I have never heard anybody that wants to sell parts explain to me the reasoning why he can't sell me a motor is because they go in other vehicles besides Corvettes. I don't care if it's going in a Moon Rover. I have money. I want to give it to you for motor. It is not rocket science. I mean, really. I mean, at the end of the day, I could be putting the motor in a go-kart. It don't matter at the end of the day. But anyway, I'll give you guys a whole story about that later, and I'll even name drop who it is in a later video. So just kind of stay tuned for that. But anyway, now more than ever, if you guys want to donate on Patreon, you can do so. I'll have a link in the description to the Patreon for this. But I mean, the Patreon, I want to make this channel kind of self-funding, so I don't want to be putting a bunch of my money into it. And not that I'm against putting my money into it. I'm just saying, if I want it to be viable and I want to be able to put something into the car, as you guys can tell, I'm not interested in keeping the car original. I'm interested in actually doing things with the car. Yeah. So if you guys want to help buy a cup of coffee or something, that'd be fantastic. That'd be very fantastic because you'd be helping out the channel. But anyway, that being said, so I got a Corvette. You guys are looking at it, and she's probably going to be down for 6 months until I figure out what is going to happen with the motor, how much horsepower I want to do, or if I don't want to do any, if I just want to do a simple rebuild. But I already have some heads picked out that I would really like on the car. I'm not changing the way the car looks. When you open up the hood, you'll notice I don't have the same heads that are factory, but in spite of the guy not wanting to sell me a motor or heads or an engine, an ECU, and a wiring harness, which actually would have been badass, because having an extra computer and having an extra wiring harness in case something screwed up would be absolutely fantastic and right up my ball, right at my ballpark here for what I'm looking for. Always have extra stuff on hand. Like, here's an extra rotary motor, okay? So, and then I've got extra blocks for different cars that I've got. That's a 351 Windsor, a couple of 305 small blocks. I even have an old Hyundai Excel motor. Yeah, it's actually a Mitsubishi motor, but that's what it come out of, was a Hyundai Excel. So anyway, guys, so I got a Corvette. You're looking at it, and she's going to be down for a little while, but she's going to be built back better, and she's going to be way, way nicer, smoother running than she ever has been. From what I can tell, original heads, or the heads have never come off the car, from what I can tell. But in her past life, I know she was run hard. I know that things weren't always peachy keen. I know she wasn't always loved. And I'm trying to rectify that for this car. So, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Thanks for putting up with my ramblings, and I hope you guys stay tuned for the next video. Catch you then. Bye.